It's amazing to think that within 20 years of the rebirth of Israel in 1948, when archaeologists were free to explore their nation's history, here in a room adjacent to the synagogue, what is known as the Geniza, the sacred scripture room, they found under the dust and the earth that had been dormant for 2,000 years, the sacred scroll of Ezekiel 37, the vision of the dry bones. All the time God had promised, and through their long dispersion of nearly 2,000 years, the promises stood, if buried for a time, that spoke of the rebirth of Israel, that God would breathe new life into the nation of Israel, so they could become the blessing He had always intended they should be, a blessing to all nations, Israel. Masada is free today, and Israel, reborn as a nation unto God, is free to fulfill the promise and to bless the nations exactly as God had said to Abraham.
What you find, for example, in Israel is almost everybody, even after they finish formal schooling or after they finish college, still go to study all kinds of things in different places, afternoon or when they take a year off, etc. Because studying, learning more, knowing more, having more intellectual openness to things is very central to Israeli way of life, and I think it has long tradition in the Jewish way of life.
It's also true that although Israel, the nation state, had not existed for nearly 2,000 years, the essence of the nation had always existed in Jewish hearts down through the centuries. Its nature was written large on the pages of the Torah, and the hope of its rebirth repeatedly expressed in the oft-quoted, "Next year in Jerusalem." If the returning Jews were going to build the new nation of Israel, they would do so according to the pattern of the old one. It would be a nation with its biblical roots firmly planted in the soil of Torah. As a result, it would be, inevitably, a place where ancient and modern worlds collide.
The very first cell phone in the world was created here in Israel by Motorola, an American company that has development activities in Israel. So Motorola Israel created the first cell phone. Those big things, remember, that used to be sort of like weaponry. There were these huge things. The whole idea of a portable phone came here.
Cell phones have now become so commonplace, a rite of passage for new teenagers, that it's now difficult for us to conceive our modern world without them. 10 years ago, in the United States alone, there were 34 million cell phone users. Today, the number of cell phone users in the US has now grown to over 203 million, not to mention the evolving worldwide popularity and influence of this Israeli invention. Netafim was born out of the necessity to produce crops where water was scarce, in the desert regions of Israel. The company is now exporting its technology as a means of blessing the nations by easing their food shortages.
We started Netafim in January of 1966. And at the beginning, it was just as if just for us, for our farms. And the farm manager at that time said, let's keep it a secret so that our competitors in growing peaches and apricots will not be able to get such yields. And of course, we opened it to the world. And we started with South Africa and Australia and the United States and then Europe. And today we are all over.
Netafim is also reaching out successfully to the poorer nations in Africa, India, and even war-torn regions such as Afghanistan. The democratic state of Israel stands in stark contrast to the dictatorships that surround her. Israel values freedom of speech for all her citizens. And because Jews have always attached importance to learning, the opportunity to acquire a good education is considered the right of every Israeli, whether Arab, Jew, or otherwise. Israel has the highest per capita ratio of university degrees in the world. 24% of those in Israel's workforce have university degrees. This gives Israel a third-place ranking in the industrialized world after the United States and Holland. Israel also produces more scientific papers per capita than any other nation. As well, she has the highest rate of patents filed per capita among all nations, and on a per capita basis, the largest number of startup companies in the world. With the exception of the United States and Canada, Israel has the largest number of companies listed on the Nasdaq Stock Exchange. Israel can also claim the highest average living standard in the Middle East. All of this means that Israel exists as a shining example to the nations around her. Barely more than 60 years old, she has demonstrated through innovation and hard work what is possible under the freedom that all democracies enjoy, when education has value, and when every citizen is given opportunity for advancement according to his or her abilities.